everybody, welcome to episode number 9, week number 9 of global pandemic, self-quarantine, quarantine experience. It's Friday, May 15th, 2020, gonna have a short episode. I woke up so late today, so good evening, everybody. We're going to see the pitcher plant blooms this week on the very first episode of Viral Vlog, which many of you may have missed. But now that I've got 5 or 6 loyal subscribers, maybe you can go back and check it out. We said, well, if we make it 9 weeks into all this, we'll see maybe the pitcher plants bloom, or 7 weeks into it, whatever, while they're blooming, so we'll check those out. Visit all of our usual guests. I've been deep into my nonfiction research and writing, so much so that I've been neglecting my artwork a little bit, which I feel guilty about and torn about a little bit, but I see the light at the end of the tunnel at finishing what will probably have to be book 1, volume 1 of the Mary Mulberry Clarke art book and biography. So I'm carrying the narrative from when she's born in 1874 up to 1921. When her husband runs off with one of the young art students to Canada and then England. Well, actually, it's 1920 when he really leaves, but I'm going to try to kind of carry the story from 1874 to 1921. Then volume 2 will be 1921 through 1962. And I see the light at the end of the tunnel with it, so I've just been really hammering away with it, but I've been staying up till 6 in the morning every night, and it's just been ridiculous. So I'll share with you a little bit of that, and also wanted to say I'll be doing a Zoom conference slideshow presentation about my research on May the 28th, Thursday, May the 28th from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so I hope you'll tune in for that. So this is the talk that I'll be doing online, the influence of Mary Mulberry Clarke, a live Zoom art event with Justin Durr, and you can see you can sign up for this online. It's from the Rockland Art Center, Rockland Center for the Arts, which actually was founded by some of Mary Mulberry Clarke's friends and stuff, so it's kind of a full circle. And I'm learning right now how to do a Zoom slideshow, so hopefully the learning curve won't be too steep. But you can sign up for this event at rocklandartcenter.org, rocklandartcenter.org, you can see there. You go in there and look up the influence of Mary Mulberry Clarke, a live Zoom event with Justin Durr, and you can get a ticket, and then I guess they send you an email or something and let you know. And it's going to be from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Thursday, May 28th. So, and it has I wrote a little blurb about what I'll cover in the talk and stuff. Maybe it's too long, but anyways, I hope that you'll join me for that and tune in. I'm very excited about it. I've been working extra super hard on this stuff lately. But, let's check in with everybody, see how everybody's doing, and let's take a look at what I've been working on with my writing. And let me drink a little bit of coffee. I have only 4 copies of my prints, my limited edition prints left, so maybe order one of those. I showed you those last week. But let's see. So if you'll remember last week, I was really working on the Gilbert Canaan chapter. This is up to 507 pages here, but since then I've gone through I'm just kind of introducing a lot of the other people in the cohort, so we got through the Rollo Peters. I did the whole Rollo Peters chapter, that's some of Rollo Peters' artwork, and that was exciting. It just feels so good to put a lot of these characters in, it's just like when you write fiction, you introduce the characters and you sort of get to know them, and then they interact with each other. Pretty soon they're all together. That's Rollo Peters and Amy Murray at Brook House. Later on, Brook House was bought by Kurt Weill and Lottie Lenya. That was in the 40s, though. Still yet to come. But this Henry Varnum Poor, building his house, Crow House there. And that's Henry Varnum Poor's portrait of Mary Mulberry Clarke, a ceramic portrait. Henry Varnum Poor's portrait of Rollo Peters. Marcel Duchamp, Henry Varnum Poor, his second wife Bessie there, having dinner. Anyways, so I've just been going through this Patrick and Molly column, writing about, so that's their whole chapter. I got through all of that. Ruth Reeves, got through all of that. There's Rollo Peters. And I've been getting into this chapter about Charles Burchfield, which is great because Charles Burchfield is actually one of my favorite artists in Mary Mulberry Clarke's little circle of artists that she sort of promoted and whatnot. Really, so it's been a real thrill to work on the research with him, and I discovered this neat thing, which was that his art school friend, Frank Daniels, Franseco Daniele, aka Frank Daniels, was kind of a bigger part of his life than anybody ever knew, I think, and I speculate that it was Frank Daniels who actually introduced him to Mary Mulberry Clarke and The Sunwise Tern. Charles Burchfield said it was Walter Pach that had done that, and then I think it was the reverse orders. I think he was staying with his friend Frank Daniels in New York when he came to New York in 1916. This is a letter from Frank Daniels to Mary Mulberry Clarke with a little illustration. Anyway, I think they were more of an artistic duo than people have ever previously known. And that's been fun to, this is Frank Daniels, some of his artwork, Franseco Daniele. He was tragically murdered in 1946, a crazy story. So I kind of figured that all out, and it just felt so great to kind of plug that history in, previously completely unknown history involving the brilliant, amazing Charles Burchfield. That's some of his artwork. This is his sketchbook when he was in New York in 1916 when he first met Mary Mulberry Clarke and stuff. You can see how even in his loose sketch he does this beautiful, just amazing sense of light, and stuff, and so weird and beautiful, some of his artwork. And it's so neat to know the cohort of artists that he was in, I think, had more to do with his style too than has been previously studied or known. So that's just been really interesting and neat to dig all that stuff up. So let's go see the pitcher plants and visit some of the other members of our very, very small community here. So we're out in the backyard to see the pitcher plant blooms, but I thought first we'd do a brief interview with Time Cube. Time Cube, how are you today? You doing good? You have your bath? You gonna attack the camera? This is Time Cube's food. He gets angry when you get near it. So we're gonna back away. We're backing away. Backing away from the food. So we're gonna let Time Cube have his food. For any of you who may have any questions as to whose food that is, that's Time Cube's food. Don't even think about going near it. He will slap you with his wing. He does have a bathtub today, so maybe finally this will be the magic week where we catch the cube taking a bath. But who knows? He doesn't perform on command. He takes his baths when he feels like it. So we'll just have to see. Now, Ferdy is also back here in the backyard. Ferdy, say hello. Say hello. Oh, hi. Hello. She likes to explore little nooks and crannies. Her type of breed is designed to live in like tiny bird cages. And so I think that she's kind of like, that's her natural inclination, is to get into tiny little spaces. But let's see the pitcher plant blooms. Oh, hey guys.
Hey guys. So we're going to show you these pitcher plant blooms. We mentioned them in the very first episode.
Wow, episode number 1 of the vlog. Nobody even probably remembers that.
And we were like, if we're still here, which really...
We are.
We are. And These are pitcher plant blossoms, and they're extremely beautiful, as you can see. So if you want to explore, so in here is the pollen and stuff. Can you see all that stuff? And so a bee will muscle. I'm going to use both hands. Put it down. Okay. A bee will have to muscle her way in there and to get the reward. It does smell kind of good, mostly like cat pee. There's a little guy in there. See that? Do you see that guy?
Yeah.
Oops, he fell. But anyway, this is a purple pitcher plant. They are the ones that are native to New Jersey in the Pine Barrens, and they're awesome. And just to show you, so you see how all these pitchers here are kind of like raggedy?
I do.
Well, now the pitchers are out, and so they're attracting insects to be pollinated. But look down here, and you'll see it's putting out its new pitchers, and these are going to become this year's beautiful pitchers that will actually attract and digest insects. So they don't open up for business, of course, until the pollination is done.
Open them up.
So soon we'll cut off these old tubes. But anyway, I want to show you a couple other plants while you're here because they're so cute. These pansies are new to me this year, and I just think they're just the most incredible thing, and they smell so sweet, and they're called tiger eye pansies. And there's another color scheme. I like the yellow, the bright yellow ones more. And then one other thing. To show off in the garden. These roses are starting to bloom. They don't look, they're not at peak beauty today, but they are still beautiful. And soon there'll be more roses. So yeah, that's the progress on the garden.
That's great. Ferdy, do you want to say goodbye? Goodbye, everybody. Hi, Ferdy. I love you. Okay, so this week I wanted to show off, I always try to showcase some art by somebody else or some little knickknacks or some collections I have, and I thought some of the nonfiction research stuff I'm doing, maybe it's getting to be a bit much, and that's all I ever show off. So I was gonna do, and there is some of that stuff in here, but it's not all it is. So this is Case Full of Treasures. There's all these turkey feathers, and I just don't even know what all kinds of feathers
That's
in
my
here.
feather collection.
Now there's rocks and stuff from various travels that we've been on. These are some lava rocks from Hawaii. Here's a lava rock. This is a little pin from a time that we went to LA and we lived in a shopping cart and slept outside of this museum Mandy wanted to go to. And we did get to go in for about an hour or something.
What's the name of that museum?
Museum of Jurassic Technology. Anyways, there's like coral in here from a time we went to Hawaii and stuff. There's birds' nests. These ceramic pigeons belong to my grandfather. These were bands from his pigeons' legs for identification purposes. There's a Sweet Candy Cookie Witch, a limited edition raggedy that's rare and beautiful. Hi! Oh, hi. Sorry, I don't usually come into Case Full of Treasures. I don't mean to disturb you. As we go down here onto the next shelf, this is the collection of bottles. These sort of like old antique medicinal bottles and stuff from Maine, when we went up to Maine. And when the tide goes out, you can find just hundreds and hundreds of these century-old medicine bottles and stuff. So, at the Bracken, we dug some things out. Most of that's upstairs in my box, and I don't want to go into that too much because I'm going to still talk about my nonfiction research. But there's a few things down here. These are some library reading room request slips from, I think, the 1930s, that Mary Mulberry Clarke was requesting books when she was working on designing the Dutch gardens in New York. And I thought that was cool because I was spending a lot of time in the reading rooms also researching her stuff. This is the garden at the Bracken in 1927, I believe. Just a nice shot of the wild garden there that we found in there. These are some John Mulberry Clarke medallion portraits. This one was outside in the rain, getting rained on, and this one is actually in pretty good shape. Still has its little hook on it and stuff. And these are copies of Italian artist Pisanello, who was considered to be the originator of the medallion portrait style. I guess he did, the big shots in his day, medallion portraits. And this is a piece for 100 years, 1814 to 1914, celebrating the fact that in 1914 humans would surely never be so stupid as to have a war again. See, no more war between the nations. That's the nations fighting there. A few more things. These dioramic boxes were done by our friend Abby Miller as illustrations for Grimm's Fairy Tales for an exhibit at the public library here in Philly. And she didn't know what to do with them when she was done, so we kind of inherited them. And they sit up on top of Box Full of Treasures, keeping watch. Now, Chest Full of Treasures, there was a couple of things that I missed the first time and didn't get to show off, so we'll see them now. Things that we found in the Bracken, this is kind of interesting. There's this little zine, this little pamphlet by a one of the beat poet people, Tuli Kupferberg. And I don't know much about him. I'm not an aficionado of that time period of poetry or whatever, but it's a neat little poetry zine sort of thing from 1959. You can see there. And an interesting thing about this was that coincidentally, it turns out that Mandy's friend Skye. Okay, yeah. So Mandy's friend Skye was a nurse for this guy, like a hospice nurse, at the end of his life. So, and this guy actually remembered something about him now, is that he's the one who, in the famous poem Howl by Allen Ginsberg mentions somebody who jumps into a river or something in that poem. And this person who did this zine Snow Job, Tuli Kupferberg, was the person that it was about. So apparently it was a suicide attempt, and he jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge, I think it was, and on accident he effortlessly survived, and he fell into the water and just swam to the shore dejectedly, and woke up the next morning in his apartment soaking wet and thought, geez, I can't even do that right. And Ginsberg found that anecdote amusing and poignant, to its time, and mentioned that in the famous poem Howl. So that's one little detail of that. But here's a better shot of that piece for 100 years medallion. Another interesting thing dug out of the Bracken was this first edition of Mutual Aid by Peter Kropotkin. Mary Mulberry Clarke was a Kropotkin devotee. She had met him in London in 1905, but even before that, she had read his books and stuff, and he was kind of an intellectual influence on her and everything. And I know that she had some of his books that were signed by him. She says in one of her journals, I have a 2-volume set signed by the Prince. She always called him the Prince, even though he hated being called the Prince. She thought it was extra super cool. So Anyway, this was a book that Mandy found in the Bracken that we dug out of there. It says, "To Marry with Love from," and I've never been able to read this signature. I'm sure it would be super interesting if I could figure it out, but it's from 1906. So this was her copy of Mutual Aid, A Factor of Evolution, I think is the full title. Yeah, and this book is kind of a retort to the philosophy of Herbert Spencer, who was springboarding off of Charles Darwin and trying to extrapolate out a human social interpretation of Darwinian evolution. So that term social Darwinism kind of came from Herbert Spencer's writings. And Mary was a reader of Herbert Spencer, and he was an influence on her. And then she discovered Kropotkin, and this book, Mutual Aid, kind of changed her thinking in respect to some of Herbert Spencer's social Darwinist philosophies, which of course were a big influence on the eugenics movement, which was then also a big influence on the Nazi regime and all of that stuff. So Kropotkin was kind of writing in response and reply against these ideas of Herbert Spencer, arguing that in nature there is also not only competition and quote unquote survival of the fittest, but there is also, as he calls it, mutual aid, and that's considered to be, of anarchist thinkers and stuff that came after Kropotkin, that's considered to be a foundational book. Whoa, Mandy just got her the famous stimulus check. I got mine. I felt stimulated. It's a historic moment. It's a momentous occasion, you know? You better believe it's got Trump's name on there, you know?
I didn't want the paper check because I didn't want his signature.
Yeah, it's so gross. It's like the mere fact that it has his signature on it makes you just want to wipe your butt with it. But, it's nice to have the money. There it is, President Donald J. Trump,
Oh, he didn't sign it.
He didn't sign it, but it has his name on it.
It has his name on it, yeah.
Anyways, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's do an instrumental song. I've been playing these instrumental songs on the bass guitar with a drum machine as a form of relaxation and release this week. And we'll end on that, and we'll say goodbye, and we'll see you next week. Okay, thanks everybody for listening and being here. The past is history, the future's a mystery, the present's a gift, that's why they call it the present. Don't do anything you wouldn't do, take it one day at a time, knock 'em dead all along the runway, break a leg, keep on trucking, never say die, etc., etc. And I will see you when I see you. I will see you next week, episode 10. That's 10x. And we will keep on. We will keep on until there's no more keeping on to be kept. All right. Until next time. Goodbye.